Well, hopefully everybody can hear me. My headphones sound different tonight. Thank you for being here. This is Breaking the Silence. I see we have a lot of new people here, um, and you're probably not familiar with my background, and that's okay. But I see you enjoyed the video at the beginning. That's the warm up. And the reason I have a warm up is to give everybody time to get in here and get settled in and start chatting. Most of the imagery you've seen in that, in fact, all of it was imagery I created using Blender and Unreal Engine. I've been doing motion picture special effects for over 50 years, and so it's one of the things I do. And they are taken from the episodes that we do, and we're up to 22 episodes now, and these are filmed episodes where we take people who have these experiences and put them in front of the camera, myself included, and we let them tell their stories. We don't cherry pick it. We're not judgmental, and we let people talk about what they experience and what's happened to them. This is not often done, especially in Hollywood. You always have skeptics and people giving a bad time about this stuff, and that's something we never do. Tomorrow, Saturday, 5 o'clock in the afternoon, Pacific Standard Time, our very next episode, which is episode 21, which is an interview, or Yvonne and I tell a story about a mass abduction that happened in 1994 at the Hotel del Coronado. You may have heard of it. She wrote a book about it that was very popular. There's things being said about making it into a film, but I was part of that mass abduction, and she was there. And we talk about that, and I talk about what happened to me that night and what happened to the roommate I was with. And I visualize with special effects that I do what happened, which was pretty amazing stuff. So that will be on tomorrow. Premieres at 5 o'clock. There's also a warm up for that, and we have a pre-premiere at 4 o'clock where we talk about the show. So we have Cristina Gomez on tonight, which I'm very happy to have on, both of us, Mary and I, and let's bring her on. I think I've made enough noise. And Cristina, if you hear this, that's because somebody gave us a super sticker, just so you know. Hi, Christina.
Hi there.
I was looking at your channel. You cover a huge variety of subjects. It's not just UFOs, but you cover robotics and science news and stuff. And I think that's great, because these are all the things that Mary and I are both interested in. And I think most of the people here. So welcome.
Thank you so much. Your intro was super cool. And the case that you had mentioned in 1994, I'm familiar with it. I had no idea you were a part of it. That's insane.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, it is. Thank you, Decker. Thank you very much for your support. Yeah, it was, I always knew back then in the 90s, if we all got together in one place, that thank you so much. Jeez, I need and often when we get together, stuff happens, but I don't think anybody's were expecting what happened to happen the way it did, and we all the next day didn't feel good. We all knew something happened, and we thought it was each one of us. My roommate and I, we were both taken, and we both remembered it. So it was a big deal. It really was. So
yeah, without a doubt, that's a very famous case and encounter. I'm just like, I'm shocked I'm able to speak to you. That's so cool.
Well, it's amazing that more people don't know about it. I'm really glad you're familiar with it. You obviously do your research. You pay attention to the subject matter, and it's that looking into details is just great. I'm just so glad to hear you say that. Thank you, Rachel. Oh, my goodness. So how did you get started doing all this? I mean, forgive me for saying so. You're very young, and to get those off, and it's such a breath of fresh air to have a young person like yourself be so informed about all these subjects.
Oh, thank you. I got into it because of my parents. Really, they're both weirdos.
Oh, terrific.
Yeah, my
You're
father
very
is a huge
fortunate.
fan. Yeah, definitely. Oh my gosh, I love my parents so much, and they've really helped me just to be curious, to ask questions, and to have an interest in the strange and unexplained. My
Mhm.
father was a big fan of the Twilight Zone, and so every New
Oh.
Year's we would watch it for 48 hours on the Sci-Fi Channel,
Oh,
try to stay
yeah.
up as long as
Good.
possible, and just binge it. So that's what really got me started on all of this, but just kind of having that foundation of like, it's okay to ask questions. And even if my parents didn't have the answers, they knew where to look. And so like I grew up in the library, really. I worked in the library in my high school years, and whenever I could, well, I was old enough to get a library card, I did. And it's just that's where I like to be. And I was always the one kind of reading those weird books that kids would classify as odd. Now, between you and I, we're like, those are the cool books. Those are the
Yeah.
best books, right? But amongst friends, it's like, Christina, you're reading that? Like, why aren't you reading, I don't know, the newest Junie B. Jones book or something? And I'm saying, no, I want to read about aliens and stuff. That's where it's at.
Yeah, I used to go to the library in the late 50s, early 60s, and I did exactly the same thing. And, I read George Adamski's books and a lot of the other books. And then, of course, later on, the famous book about Barney and Betty Hill. So, and I was having experiences the whole time back then. So I was very attracted to um, that subject because I was seeing UFOs all the time and didn't know why. Not till years later when I met Whitley Strieber, and that sort of changed things.
So you're reading the books to look for answers or to find people similar to you to help you understand what was going on. Is that it?
Yeah, I wanted to know, well, especially in reading Barney and Betty Hill's book, I wanted to know what it was like to have that contact, not realizing that the experiences I were having with it were similar. Yeah, I didn't drive down a road and get pulled over. I was a young kid. I wasn't driving, and but when I read Communion, and I started looking at what Whitley was writing about. We've been friends for years, and we talk all the time. And I realized that the things I thought were crazy dreams and things back when I was a kid, uh, really for me, had to be that interaction with that non-human intelligence, because I never met a lot of these people or Whitley or read a book like his before, and yet on the cover was something I was so familiar with, and I thought that was unique to me, as so many of us did. So that really kind of opened it all up.
Yeah, his book Communion and the ones that followed really opened people's eyes to the whole abduction phenomenon, because he was a pioneer, one of the first to really go into detail and write about it. And been
Exactly.
very interesting to read his more recent books and to listen to his shows and his podcasts over the years to see how his mentality has changed with his encounters and abductions and the connection between the UFO phenomenon and the paranormal. That's one thing that's always caught my attention with his research and his investigations.
Yes, because they're connected.
Right.
In my family, we when someone we love, a loved one passes away, we often see them at the moment that happens, whether we're sleeping or wide awake. It runs in the family, and plus my family never admitted to me that they really had experiences until my mom's, like, the last couple of years of her life, and she admitted to me that I mean, she described some of the things she's seeing, like this big black object in the sky, and the lights came out from it, and they shined on the porch, and my grandmother was there, and she just was backed into the house. The lights followed her through the windows into the house, and then she couldn't remember what happened to herself afterwards. So basically, both sides of my family told me stories about similar things. So it runs in the families. This.
Yes, I'm familiar with the theory of it being generational, which that is just a can of worms in itself of like, why is there something special about that lineage, that generation more so than someone else? Or what are they studying, or why were they chosen to have encounters and sightings versus your next door neighbor?
Yeah. Well, chances are the next door neighbor is having it happen too, and they just don't remember. But it's happening to a lot of people more than we ever realized. And yes, we do wonder about that. And everything that we come up with, at least that I do and Whitley does, is purely theoretical. Is conjecture really, because we really don't know. The only thing we really truly know is that we're seeing some kind of craft and we're seeing beings and we're interacting with a non-human intelligence, but we really don't know the intentions, where they're from, why they're doing this, but we have clues. And so we can have theories. And one of them, as crazy as it seems to be, is that I'm finding in interviewing so many people and getting so many letters from them that Mary reads in her podcast, 90% of them don't want to have their real names used. They want to remain anonymous. So they have nothing to gain. And many of them, in fact, almost all of them, say that they remember being very young and feeling like they didn't belong here, that they would look at the stars at night and want to go home. This is a common theme. And then, of course, there's what we know about hybridization is that it's alleged that they're trying to create human beings that are born into this world that look just like you and I, but they are somehow those beings themselves, and they're learning what it is to be human, and they're learning more about us that way. So that's really crazy. It's not enough that you see a UFO or you're wide awake at night like I did and walked into the kitchen and there was one of them standing there looking at me. It's a possibility, but no one knows actually for sure.
I'm with you on that one. And for myself, when I hear people that say, "Oh, I have all the answers," man, I'm running the other way. I'm sprinting.
Yeah. Oh,
I
no.
don't believe it.
I'm with you. And I've run into those people quite often. And I try to be as kind and nice as I can be, but no one has all the answers.
No.
And
Especially with
we
this
have
topic.
evidence. We have evidence. We have physical evidence, photographs. I knew Roger Lear very well. We were friends, and I was there at most of the implant surgery, so I got to see them removed. I got to see what they looked like. That the one was taken from the arm, I could see where it was going to be taken from before it happened. There was no scarring, nothing to show that something had ever entered the flesh, and yet there it was. I got to see the analysis. I got to hold them in my hand. And they were very much not of this earth, the material they were made out of. The most striking thing was the human nerve cells growing out of metal. That's a pretty good trick. And of course, that was really hard evidence, but yet the scientific community just poo-pooed it. They really did, as they will often do. So it's very hard.
Robert Lear's work was just unbelievable, and the dedication that he had. One of the very few doctors or practically a surgeon at this point, doing all the things that he did, helping people that had those odd objects, anomalies in their body, and taking them out, and kind of, I feel like, also walking them through the situation. Not only was he there being a doctor, but he was also there just kind of helping them out to get a better understanding of what's going on. So I know you do, myself and so many others really appreciate Dr. Roger Lear on all the work that he did. It's just, I'm amazed that you were able to speak with him and to see a lot of the things that he did. I mean, I'm starstruck. I really am.
Roger was amazing, and I could still hear his voice, and he just was such a character. And there was a UFO that was seen in Simi Valley, and it flew over the 405 and then over the 118, and everybody saw it. I mean everybody on the road, people took video of it and everything else. And then it went down. It crashed or something. It in the hills there, and someone saw where it went down, and she was involved in the subject matter, and she told us right where it was. And I remember Roger and I, he's in his suit and tie, you know, like something out of X-Files. And here it's the two of us going into private land with cows and stuff, and going to where the crash site or the alleged crash site was. And when we got there, we found this field where something had hit in the middle of it, and all the vegetation had been blown out in a circle around it. We could see all kinds of truck tires and stuff around the site. He had a Gauss meter, and we had a Geiger counter, and we did pick up low background radiation there. We took some of the vegetation and stuff, and he had it analyzed, and the results were interesting because whatever happened to the vegetation there, it experienced the heat of the sun for like a nanosecond. Whatever was there had been removed already, obviously. And this is the kind of things that Roger and I would do together. We would go out and hunt down things that had happened. So he was amazing. So about your show and about the subjects that you cover, you must spend a lot of time researching.
Yes, so much so that my eyesight has gotten a lot worse just staring at a screen so many hours of the day. I know you can feel that one firsthand, but
yeah, well, that's why I'm wearing these after all these years staring at computers.
I feel you. I've been wearing them since I was like almost 10 years old, so I get it. But with the shows that I do and the research that I do, it does focus a lot on UFO cases, UFO updates, also how the United States government is talking about UFOs, along with the paranormal and cryptids as well. Because as we had mentioned a little bit earlier, Steve, there is this connection between all of these different phenomena. You cannot have one without the other. And Whitley Strieber is a fantastic example of that, where he's had paranormal encounters with deceased loved ones and then a UFO sighting before or after his paranormal experience. And there's also sightings of Bigfoot and then a UFO in the sky as well, with people's alleged experiences and encounters. It's amazing. And I originally thought, when I got into the topic, doing the research, I thought, they're all totally separate. There's nothing to see here. You cannot mix black with white and make gray. But I was in for a shock, in for a surprise. I was wrong. and I'll be the first to admit it. That's not a problem. And I began to realize that there is this correlation, there is this connection between all of these different, very strange things, especially when looking at hotspots. A great example would be Skinwalker Ranch, Bradshaw Ranch. We could look at the Bermuda Triangle even, but it goes across the world where you have these pinnacle points on land, usually in national forests, to be fair, where you see all of this very strange stuff, UFO sightings. You have UFO sightings, you have the paranormal, you just have cryptid sightings. It's just really interesting. And that's what catches my interest right now.
So what do you mainly focused on at this very point in time? Is there anything that's really grabbed your attention over everything else you normally look at?
I think one of my favorite things right now is staying up to date on the latest strange news. So it has to do with like the recent coverage on UFOs, have it be from the government or just kind of popular sightings that are coming out, along with AI advancements, robotic advancements, and things pertaining to the paranormal. So like, stuff caught on camera, even, or people sharing their encounters, like with the news, I always find rather intriguing. So that's something that keeps me on my toes, and it's changing every single day, more so than when you study just one case, which I love doing. My favorite case, at least one of them, is the Colares, Brazil incident of 1977. But with the news, it's constantly evolving, and that's what I'm enjoying right now.
Yeah, we just had on yesterday. We had on Philip Mantle, who, of course, is the one who's done the most in-depth investigation into the Pascagoula, Mississippi case back in 1973 that's ever been done. He sent me his book. It's just incredible. And of course, there was the Netflix series on that too. it has so much, so many of the people witnessed and saw the same craft, unlike any other encounter like that before. In his studies of it, he keeps getting more and more information all the time. So he's focused just on that right now. He's saying it's finally about to come to an end. So what do you think about AI?
We are seeing the evolution happen right in front of our eyes. It's unbelievable how we're able to see everything happen, all of these companies integrating AI and it being so publicly used that people have this fear that it's going to take over the world, in the sense of like looking at art. It's going to take away artist jobs, photography, right? Marketing, all of these different things. And there is a good side and there's a bad side to AI, just like any other piece of technology or information. And right now, I'm enjoying seeing the developments, but there have been few companies that are making rather alarming decisions, especially looking at the parliament in the UK, how they want to implement AI in order to start looking over laws, revising lawmaker paperwork and things like this. And while they are pushing it that it's going to be has a positive aspect, AI, people believe, will take a lot of jobs because it's more efficient, it's cheaper, and there's going to be a lot less human error. And right now we're still kind of laughing at it. They're like, oh, nothing to see here. But I think 10 years down the line or so, it's going to be integrated even more so. But
Oh, yes, it
right
is.
now, yeah, I mean, right now, any website you go on to, Google is a great example. Okay. AI is integrated in it.
Sure.
And ChatGPT, people, you can it's an app now. You can just download it and ask it any question you want. You can have a full blown conversation. You can have it in your cars. It's unbelievable, and there's a plus side and there's a downfall to it.
Sure. Well, yeah, sure. I mean, there's, back in the 90s, the early 90s, when CGI came along and it was being used prevalently, it it was replacing makeup effects and creature making, which I did a lot of in film, because we didn't need to put people in monster suits anymore. We could generate it all with CGI. And a lot of people lost jobs as a result and did not make the switch over. I did immediately. I thought it was cool, and I thought it was still hands-on, even though it was in the machine. So we would create our creatures that way, and then we, composite them into film. Now that's being threatened by AI because, well, if I want a creature, I can do a drawing or a basic sketch or something like that, a painting, and then show it to AI and say, I want this brought to life and I want it to do all these things, and it will do it for me and it will put it in the film. And pretty much it'll look pretty good. They're not quite there yet, but it's all happening at an exponential rate. And so in about 3 or 4 years, this stuff's going to look so real and so perfect. And it's just going to annihilate the special effects industry. But, like you said, there's a good side and a bad side. The good side is that people can do other things. They can adapt, modify, and find different things to do, because that's what's always happened since we made the first machine. So
You're right. And people had similar ideas and thoughts when photography came around. They said, oh, no one's going to be paying for painted portraits, drawn portraits, right? And it turns out we still use both. We still go with paintings and we also use photography. While photography today has dominated by far, it doesn't mean that we have entirely killed the portraits, the ones that are drawn of landscapes or people. Bob Ross, he got famous. He got famous for doing drawings and paintings of landscapes that we could so easily take a picture of. But some of us like to stick to things that amplify our creativity. So with
That's right.
AI and AI imaging, or have it be with special effects, it does two things. One, it does spark people's creativity because they're able to get something that they want so crisp, so perfect, and so much faster than drawing it out and then losing that inspiration. And also, you still have to be knowledgeable on how to use it to give it the proper prompts and the
Sure.
negative prompts. And not
Yeah,
everyone has that knowledge,
that's
right?
right. I know.
So there's still going to be a human mind behind it. So I think, right, for
Yeah,
the time
right.
being. But I think that looking at this from the same mentality as when photography started, we might be able
Mhm.
to implement that same situation to this AI development in the sense of creativity and artwork.
Mary and I are both artists, and we both paint, and I of course sculpt. I mean, all the creatures that I've done for movies were all sculpted and then molded and made out of foam rubber and applied to people's faces
Nice.
and all that kind of thing. So, um,
Like Face
and
Off. Did you used to watch that show?
yeah, no, 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 no. I didn't work on that show. A lot of the
But like,
films.
did you watch it?
I didn't watch it that much. So, it's the work I did all the time. I got paid to do all the time, and I worked on everything from Star Trek to Ghostbusters, and um, so I didn't tend to watch shows about makeup effects that much. So, and now I'm not doing it all anymore. Today, it's all about filmmaking and CGI, and of course, as you know, the editing software, for example, has AI built into it now. So I use both Premiere, you know, um,
Mhm.
Adobe Suite, but I also use DaVinci, and I prefer that for editing. One of the things I really like is that when we have problems with sound and we've got a truck driving by or something like that, I'll just tell it to get rid of it, and it's gone. And that's because of AI. It knows.
DaVinci is a wild program.
DaVinci,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Have you
It's so
used it?
detail oriented, but it's great once you know
It's
what, like, once you have it down.
I find it very easy to use after using Adobe Premiere for years and years and years, which it was more difficult to use. And their After Effects is the way it's seamless between you got a shot and you want to enhance it and do something to it. You just go over there to Fusion, you make the adjustment, you go back, and there it is. So you don't have to render it off or anything. So it's amazing.
It is.
So,
I've used it, but I still need a bit of practice
well, I
with
see
it because
you're
there's
using
so much.
I see you're using AI, and I mean, I recognize it, and you're getting some really nice results. So you really know how to get the prompts correct, and it is a struggle at first. You have to learn how dare I say it thinks, you know.
You're right. You're definitely right there.
So have you ever seen a UFO?
I have. And funny enough, recently in the last like 2 weeks, I've been dreaming about having sightings, which I think is crazy. I don't know what's going on with that, but I'll just like I'll dream it, and then I'll go outside and it's not there, and I'm thinking, oh man, it was just that one was just a dream. But yes, I have had a sighting, and to be candid, it's not something that I really enjoy talking about, just because I still haven't fully understood what was going on there. But it was a pivotal moment in my life to be able to the point where I'm able to talk about just the overall UFO phenomenon today. And I think a lot of people that have their own experiences and encounters, it just catapults them into research or into denial until there is this little spark in their mind that says, oh my gosh, I forgot I had this sighting. And then you're just in the right place at the right time having these conversations, or like a book just casually falls into your lap, or you come across a UFO documentary. It's amazing how that kind of stuff works, where you're just at the right place at the right time to start doing the research on something that you might have originally thought was a little too out of this world, a little too crazy.
Well, when you look at the universe, especially through the James Webb Telescope, it couldn't be any crazier.
Yes. Yes, I am with you on that one. I love the images that we've received from the James Webb Space Telescope, and now
Mhm.
knowing with that information of the telescope being launched is that the universe is twice as old as we originally thought it was. That's
Yes.
one of the most mind-blowing pieces of information from the JWST that I could have ever imagined, honestly, in this lifetime. Now, I'm excited because NASA will be launching their Habitable Worlds telescope or
Right.
observatory in the next few years. But it is exciting to see these telescopes evolve technologically and also with the information that they bring back to Earth.
And it was so amazing to watch the launch, watch the
Yes.
deployment. I mean, there were 150 things to go wrong with that telescope. That everything had to go exactly correct. And everybody's always putting down NASA and they doctor photographs and their spacecraft never works. And it just, you've seen it. I think NASA does a great job. And people have to remember the people working for NASA don't want to doctor pictures and things. They really don't. They're just like you and I, but they want to work in the industry, aerospace industry, and put people in space and do exploration. And that's the only way to go. It
It
really
is.
is.
It
And
is.
it's just, and that very soon, if it hasn't happened already, and they haven't told us that they are going to be discovering planets that are giving off the signature of biosignatures and also industrialization, we can definitely detect that. So it's only a moment of time. Now you're talking about another telescope that's going to go up, and that is just to look for habitable worlds.
Habitable worlds, to look at their techno signatures like you had mentioned, and that industrialization.
Sure.
That's the purpose of that telescope. And I originally thought the James Webb Space Telescope was going to help with that, to find these more habitable
Me too.
worlds, but it didn't pan out that way. So on that note, I'm a bit disappointed, but what we've received so far, I am optimistic to see what the future holds when it comes to these kinds of developments, especially with the Juice probe and the Europa Clipper mission
Oh
as
yeah.
well. I'm very, very excited to see the results and to also see when the Europa Clipper launches. Because when looking at Europa, I think for the last, let's say, 10 years or so, it's believed that going a mile deep within the ice, there's a whole ocean there, and there could be alien marine life. And
Sure.
so with this new Clipper mission that should be launching pretty darn soon, it I would really like to see them drill down and find some kind of marine life, and just to tell the world, the entire world, that there is so much more beyond our planet. There's so much.
Oh, there
And
is.
we should share that excitement and that curiosity, instead of only focusing on the latest trends, what celebrities are doing, because that stuff is, in all reality, it's irrelevant.
Yeah.
But looking at life beyond our planet will only display to humanity that we are a spacefaring species. We are natural explorers, and at some point we will leave Earth and we will colonize another planet.
Yes,
And
we
these
will.
are just the stepping stones to move forward. It's very exciting.
I know it's Star Trek, one of my favorite things.
Definitely. Oh yes. Oh yeah.
I had the pleasure of working on Star Trek numerous times, and I knew Gene Roddenberry, and he talked the same way you were talking right now. He was a real special guy. What do you think about the possibility? And say possibility. I want to say, what do you think about the Dyson spheres they're discovering? But there's been a lot of controversy about that from scientists that I won't mention, who are kind of stuck in dogma and in the past about these things. But what could possibly be um, causing that high of an infrared signature around these stars?
I have no clue. And the thing is that even though our telescopes are so advanced,
Mm-hmm.
they're not.
No,
They're
they're not.
not
They're
when it comes
stone
to these
knives and bear
Dyson
skins.
spheres. Right, right. And because I do not have an astronomy degree by any means, so just speculating is the very best I can do.
Me too.
It's really difficult to say what's actually going on just because we're only receiving a very limited amount of information, very limited, and we're making these very exciting ideas and assumptions and using our imagination to kind of rationalize what we're seeing. And if these Dyson spheres look exactly as how we're displaying them to look, on these articles and on the news and
Mhm.
stuff like that, what does that mean? Like, what can we use that energy? Can we somehow create that here? How will it benefit us? I think that's the mentality that a lot of people that are looking into this are considering. Are they organic, or were they created by another intelligent species? And if so, when are they going to come on over for a cup of tea and teach us the ways?
Well, you know all too well that how old the universe is, and there's been plenty of time for other people to build even better telescopes, and they would have spotted us a long time ago,
Oh
over
yeah, we're
and over
noisy.
and over again. And the minute that they had the technology to travel the stars and get here, they would have been here repeatedly over and over again, because the planet is fascinating. It's a planet that has life on it. It has, for the most part, intelligent life, and and so there's nothing that would keep us away from visiting Earth if we discovered such a world and could get to it. And we're right on the edge of being able to discover it. And at the rate that we're making new advancements in propulsion, it's not going to be too long before we can leave this solar system.
I want to be alive to see that. That would be very
Well, you and
cool.
me both. I think you will be.
Gosh, it would be awesome for the next 5 year, 3 years. You know what? Let's throw in 3 years.
Okay.
That would be amazing. Will
I
that
won't get
happen?
that
I don't
old.
I don't know, but that would be very cool. And when we're looking at planet Earth in particular, it's just a perfect planet. It's a water world
It
filled
is a water
with
world.
4 seasons in most parts, not everywhere, right? You
Right.
have forests, deserts, all these different environments, and it orbits the sun or another star, and it's not tidally locked. You don't have just that horizon where it's only that little perfect sliver. It's perfect across the entire planet. It's just it's insane. It's so beautiful just to consider that. And then imagine if there are so many other planets that follow ours in the sense of characteristics, having it not be tidally locked, because that's a consistency with planets across space. Is that so? Finding a truly another planet Earth, that would change this world, and we would immediately go over there.
Yeah. It's just a matter of time. And the other thing, I'm sure that planets like ours are out there. I don't think they're that prevalent. So I think that is another reason that the planet's being visited, because they're gems when they're discovered.
It's a
Uh,
tourist spot.
it very well could be. And right now, there's so much crazy stuff going on down here that they're here for the show. Maybe I know that the people I know right now are seeing UFOs a great deal, and all I have to do is go out in the backyard at night before I go to bed, and I'll see something. But it's been like that all through my life. Sometimes it's far away, and being an aviator, I know my aircraft very, very well, and I know what's ours and what isn't when I'm looking at it. And I see stuff all the time. So it's busy here. There's a lot of activity going on. There's lots of UFOs being photographed and videotaped. And I'm shown a lot of them, and I look at them, and a lot of them is like, I don't know. It could be just about anything, but others are very striking, and what you're seeing is nothing of ours. Although there are plenty of people who say that we back engineered technology, and that's what we're seeing. Well, maybe there's
Is
some
that a possibility?
I don't know. The thing about what, at least the United States, the way we work is if we have a good example is the SR-71. No one knew it even existed for years and years and years. They kept it secret. But of course, it was retired years ago. So what do they replace it with? Also, the Stealth 117 fighter. They kept that secret for 10 years. And then finally, they told us about it. No one could get a picture of it. They did not fly it over populated areas because it was a secret aircraft, and we don't fly top secret aircraft over populated areas so that our enemies don't hear that, hey, I saw this aircraft and I got it on video, and it's like, oh my God, Russia's looking at our aircraft and saying, we don't have that now. They have that capability, and so it's no longer a secret and it's no longer effective in warfare. So why would they fly back engineered technology over cities and allow people to see it? All you have to do is look up. The night I saw the huge triangle fly over, I was on the phone with Whitley Strieber talking on the phone. I look up and there's this big triangle going over my backyard, and it was completely silent. And everyone said, oh, that was a back engineered, human aircraft. But no, I don't believe it was.
And it's just unbelievable to have multiple sightings like that. It really is. And when using the reverse engineering theory, I think that there can be some merit behind it because it's so easy to point the finger and say, oh no, it's not military, it's aliens, right? And then you just kind of move, you point in the direction to not allow people to see the other side, right? And so I think there is something to that. But for all of these sightings for centuries that people have had,
sure,
you can't apply the military reverse engineering theory to everything. It's not a one size fits all. But I think that there could be a little bit to it.
So where do you think this is all going? Do you have any theories or ideas? I'd love to hear them.
I'd like to think if I indulged myself, I'd like to think it'd be just a mass global sighting. That would be really interesting because a question that people are having, myself included, is why is the United States government talking about UFOs now? Since 2017, but relatively now. We've had this interest for 50, 60, 70 years, and they're just now showing this keen interest where we have representatives in the US saying we need to have a UFO caucus, we need to have a UFO hearing, we got to bring in the whistleblowers. And the question is, why now? Why not 10 years ago? Why not 20 years ago? Why are we doing it today? And there are a handful of theories, but one of them could be attempting to prime the population for a sighting or an encounter that cannot be controlled, because you can't keep a lid on a boiling pot, right? So you want to give that soft disclosure. Could it be an entire distraction as a whole for something else, right? We don't actually know, but what I'm happy about is that it is being publicly spoken about. And looking at this topic, researching UFOs, it enables critical thinking. It's questioning everything. It's being skeptical. And that's probably one of my highlights for doing the research with this. It's just, it gets you out of your mental comfort zone where nothing is fed to you on a silver spoon. Nobody has all of the answers. You got to figure it out on your own. And even you might be wrong. And that is okay. You learn as you go.
Yeah,
so
it's easy to be wrong. I'm wrong. There it is.
Yeah. Be first to admit it, right? It just makes it so much easier.
It does.
But It does. It does. And so I am really enjoying that part to this topic, and having that government public interest to it. But I must state that other countries across the world have had UFO offices for decades. Uruguay in South America was one of the first ones in South America to have their UFO office. Brazil, Chile, Argentina, Japan, China, Russia, the United States, and Canada, we're the ones that are so behind, and yet we are at the center
Yeah.
stage. Everyone's looking at what does the Pentagon have to say? What is the Canada Sky Project going to release in the summer or in the fall with their UFO report? And with the latest ARO report now we got a few months ago, one of
Oh,
the
yeah.
most striking sentences out of that 40-50 page report was, foreign countries with UFO offices agree with the United States that there's nothing to see here. UFOs have a conventional explanation, they're not extraterrestrial. And then immediately Japan followed that. Australia followed that. I can imagine Canada will do the same with their report that they're going to release through the Canada Sky Project. That's what I find bizarre. It's like, first you're showing an interest in UFOs, and then Arrow, the UFO office, is saying, no, nothing to see here. What's going on? What do you think, Steve?
There's October 20th to consider too. I mean, that's when they're going to, they by law are supposed to, by law, are supposed to release all the documents about this subject from the Pentagon. And even if they do it, I bet the stuff is so redacted, that in blacked out as we got before, that we're going to get much out of it. I don't know, Christina. I don't know why they're playing these games with us. And it's starting to annoy some of the people in Congress and the Senate, because they know that there's something going on and they're not being truthful. And, the Pentagon's supposed to work for us, for them. It's not the other way around. You need to cough this stuff up. But I just don't know how it's going to go. I mean, I've been dealing with this subject matter since the 50s, when I was 6 years old, and I had my first experience, and I was always fascinated with it. And it's been just a battle, an uphill battle all the way to get anyone to believe you, to get the people who are keeping the cover up to uncover what they're keeping covered up and tell people the truth. So I don't have an answer for that, Christina. I don't know what's going to happen with this. I do know that more people are starting to come forward, and I know some of the whistleblowers, and a couple of them are going to come on our show and spill their guts about what happened to them. So there's a lot of that going on, and I think that the people who have had above top secret clearances and worked in intel, they joined those forces for all the right reasons, because they wanted to do the right thing for their country, and they wanted to help people, and they wanted to do good things. But when they were told to lie and cover up and keep things from the public, and the years go by, they're fed up. They don't want to be that person. They don't want to be part of that. So they're coming forward, and they're coming forward more and more and more. But it's so easy for Neil Tyson to say, oh, they're all crazy and they just want attention. And then the public goes, oh, yeah, okay. Doug and Dave did all the crop circles. Oh, okay, sure, okay. It was, who it was. It was two guys. They showed them on the news. It's very, very hard.
It is disheartening to have people so quickly shut off ideas and answers, especially looking at whistleblowers, especially looking at the crop circles. I think that's a great example that you provided, Steve, because that one it shocked the world. And across the entire planet, people have been seeing crop circles, and then they're saying, oh no, it's just these two guys from the UK just having a little bit of a laugh, and
they sure get around.
Yeah, exactly. That's insane. I don't know what tech they're using, but pass it on over, okay?
Plus, they work with microwave technology that's programmable. I mean, that's pretty good. They bend wheat. They don't just, Get it to lay
Exactly.
flat. They don't break it. Yeah, right.
It's unbelievable. And it's there, you only need a few influential people to step on everyone else.
Sure.
We've seen it time and time again.
Have you?
And I don't think it's going to change. It's just what matters is more people getting involved in the topic and plugging in that critical thinking that we have been taught since a child to not have, to shut up, sit down, take notes, but don't ask questions. And so with this, people are saying, are tapping back into that, tapping back into being skeptical, asking questions, and no longer sitting down and shutting up.
Critical thinking and ask better questions, ask lots of questions. We had a saying back in the 60s when we were trying to save the world and stop the war in Vietnam, and it was question authority.
Sounds pretty good.
Yeah. So what case are you working on now? What are you focused on?
So with the work that I do, anything that catches my interest, I'll immediately start researching it, because if
Okay.
I let it sit in the back burner, I'll never get to it. And that's why I like doing the research, the articles, and the shows that I do, is that it keeps me not only up to date, but it forces me to continue doing the research, because sometimes it can be easy to just sit down and rot, or you feel disheartened, or you feel this lack of interest even from time to time, because some topics can be so dark, right? Or like you
Yeah.
just keep hitting these roadblocks and these obstacles. So I really enjoy doing the work that I do every single week to get me out of that malaise if I ever get into one. So there isn't one particular case that I'm
Right.
researching consistently. It's finding a bunch of them and then going into it. But there, of course, there have been a few that I thought to myself, I need to do so much more research. And one that's cliche, but I want to say it anyway because I can say what I want.
Yes,
And that
that's right.
is that's right. And that's Roswell. While it
Oh,
is the most famous UFO case of all time and no one can ever stop talking about it, every documentary and every book and whatever, in reality there's so much to it. I mean, like, it's unbelievable actually how much is to it, and it seems that every few years we just get a little bit more information, just a little bit more. And that's kind of where my interest is right now, and I never thought I would be in this predicament. I thought, oh dude, Roswell is so lame, it's so boring. I mean, it's awesome, it's awesome, but like, I am, my ears are bleeding listening to it all the time. But then I kept finding this new stuff and I thought, oh, okay, I see the hype, now I'm getting it. And then of course Colares, Brazil, just I love that case so much. And that one, there's been a lot of information that has been released through FOIA in the early 2000s with witness testimony, drawings, and photographs as well. So those are like two cases that I'm just kind of having an interest in right now.
wow. So you have quite a following. You've got a lot of subscribers. Do you find that a lot of them are younger people? Because, for years, mostly who's been covering this subject is a bunch of grumpy old men and women. you know, uh,
I'm getting there.
yeah. Well, but this is what's great is you're young, you're bright, you're focused, and you must be attracting a younger audience and getting them interested in the subject, and that's a hard thing to do, and so I think it's really very valuable what you're doing. It is really helping a great deal,
Thank
because
you.
you know they'll look at me and say, well, he's just old and crazy. you know but you might be able to get their attention and say, hey, there's really something to this stuff, you ought to take a close look. And it's very, very important, all this material. It's the most important thing that's happening to the human race right now, having contact with beings from other worlds, being able to talk to our lost loved ones, to spirit world. All these things have been surrounding us since the beginning of time, practically. And I think that the world needs to live in a world where they're aware of these things, and you're helping to bring that about.
Wow, thank you so much. With the audience that I have, a lot of them are high school graduates in college up until their 20s, and my one of my aspirations is just to inspire people, just to get them to question things, or just to be curious, but also to be knowledgeable in all of the things that we're not hearing in the mainstream mundane news. Because
Oh
Steve,
yeah.
I agree with you that this is the most important conversation that humanity is having, and I've had people fight me with that, and I said, look, I don't fight, I'll debate. Okay, but I'm not going to fight you. If you want to believe that's fine. But this, if we open our eyes and our minds to the UFO phenomenon, with there being life outside of planet Earth, with us being visited, with all of these sightings and encounters, it will only prime us to explore space and the universe. At some point in time, it will be mandatory to take not just your average now astrobiology classes, but also UFO sighting history, historical cases.
Wow.
It's going to be mandatory, and colleges and universities are all already following that suit, very specifically for astrobiology students. Or you can take electives in one college in Oregon that doesn't give you any credits but teaches you about media and UFOs. And on a, I want to say, a yearly basis, we are just seeing more universities just adapting to teaching these courses about aliens, about UFOs, because it will be required for a lot of degrees in the next 10, 20 years when we begin mining asteroids, going to other planets outside of our solar system, dealing with entities that are non-human, how to interact with them, what's the diplomacy, right? Or like, who's going to be an ambassador? All of these different things. It's so important. And that's why we can agree that this topic is one of the most important topics that humanity is having right here, right now.
And when people still laugh about and say, "Oh, come on, Christina, this stuff's there's no evidence, there's no truth to this." That's what I hear all the time. What
Really?
you're saying is they need to go and research for themselves, and when they research the subject matter and they do it correctly, they will be overwhelmed with how much evidence there is.
I
And they when they do, they say, "I never realized." Everything from the government documents to eyewitnesses. Some of the eyewitnesses are amazing pilots, military people, and there's just so much.
It's a lot. It's a lot to swim through, and you took the words out of my mouth. It can be overwhelming, and we've all been there. However, I've never been in the predicament with amongst my peers or my coworkers, or even when I was in university. I never had the situation of, oh, how can you believe that stuff, Christina? You're so out of this world. What's going on?
Mm.
As people that I've spoken to, even just like for fun, random people on campus, I'll say, aliens, like UFOs, and it's the immediate reaction is yes, obviously, duh, and they look at me like I'm stupid. It's really unbelievable just to have that shift from a few decades ago of like, you're out of your mind, to
Yeah.
yes, obviously science has been proving to us that we cannot be the only ones in the universe. And in every documentary ever, one person has to say that. It's cliche. It is,
Yeah,
but
it
it's
is.
accurate. It's
It is.
accurate. And it's been very interesting to see people's minds open, especially with the latest UFO hearing with David Grush, David Fravor, and Ryan Graves. It just opened another can of worms. First, you had the 2017 article released by the New York Times, but then this latest public hearing where they had to swear under oath in front of Congress, it just solidified that there is something to it. And I feel like it gave people the ability to openly talk about it without that high level of stigma or fear
Stigma.
or embarrassment.
Mm-hmm.
And even though there's been pilots and military officials that are still hesitant to come forward, which I understand based off of the way that people have treated Lou Elizondo and David Grush, I get it. And yet, in these last few years, it's just been easier for people to, at the very least, come onto your show, come on to anyone else's podcast, and just have a space to share their experience with other like-minded people. We didn't have that 10 years ago. We've come a long way in that respect.
We have. You're absolutely right. Well, wow. What a great conversation. I really appreciate you being on the show.
Thank you so much, Steve. I also appreciate it.
We'll have to do this again because things are happening so fast that, 2 months from now, there will be an enormous amount of material to discuss once again. So I'll be watching you closely. And
I'm ready for the mass sighting, Steve.
The mass sighting.
I want to be there.
I don't know if that's going to happen or not. I have no idea. It's possible, I suppose. It would be really a fascinating moment if people couldn't avoid it.
Like Arrival, the movie, right?
That was an excellent movie. I'm glad you brought that film up. Yeah, yeah. That's that film and 2001: A Space Odyssey are two of my favorite films about that subject matter, because 2001 was way ahead of its time, but Arrival was just great, and Interstellar was really.
Even Contact. If we're going to be throwing good movies,
Well, the thing about Carl Sagan is he's different than Neil Tyson, because he knew, and he had his way of letting us know that there was more. And that book and that film was a big part of that. So, but I also know that when he was off camera, he knew darn well that people were seeing things, and they weren't from here. So we'll just leave that at that. So well, thanks again, and thanks for everybody that's been here, and all the chat that I couldn't even look at it. I'm hopefully Mary's been paying attention to it, but when I have a guest, I need to focus on the guest. It's tempting is look over and say, what are they talking about? But you had a lot of people in here tonight.
Thank you so much. I appreciate being on and speaking to you and having a really good conversation, a very constructive conversation on this topic.
Yeah.
So just thank you for that.
And thanks for doing what you're doing, because it's so important. It's very much appreciated by Mary and myself and everyone here. All right. Thank you. Well, don't forget, everyone, tomorrow night at 5:00 is the mass abduction story with Yvonne and I both talking about that infamous night. So we'll see you then, and we'll see you in chat.